Good evening and welcome to this City of Pasco Council regular meeting this Monday, August 19th, 2024. The city thanks you for being a part of our city and participating in this meeting. We also would like to note that there are agendas for those who are here in attendance to your right on that short table. For those who are following along, it's at www.pasco-wa.gov/agenda. And at these regular meetings, the city takes formal action on items, we hold public hearings, and we conduct other business of the city. I like Superman coming on in. Sorry for those in TV land, all two viewers, you missed that. So this meeting is being televised on TV at PSC-TV channel 191 on Spectrum Cable in both Pasco and in Richland, and is streamlined on the city's Facebook page, website, YouTube channel, and on via GoToWebinar. And this and previous council meeting is available to the public via the city's website. Lastly, folks may submit comments or ask questions by contacting the city manager, city clerk, or via the Ask Pasco app. And of course, we'll have an opportunity for public comment during this meeting. With that, Miss Debbie.
Council members Barajas,
Present.
Blaisdell,
Present.
Grimm,
Here.
Harpster,
Present.
Perales,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Milne,
Present.
and Mayor Serrano.
I am here as well.
Great.
With you all, please stand with me and join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And we do have our consent agenda, which is quite lengthy tonight. All items listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by a roll call vote as one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If further discussion is desired or requested by a council member, the item may be removed from the consent agenda to the regular agenda and considered separately. So with that, got item 4A, that's alpha, approval of meeting minutes for August 5th and August 12th, 2024. Item B, bills and communications, approving claims in the total amount of $2,513,721.09. Item C, resolution number 4481, to accept quote for new cat and dog kennels for the new Tri-Cities Animal Control Facility. Resolution number 4482, acceptance of work for 8th Street Sports Complex Phase 1. Moving to item E, resolution number 4483, project acceptance for East Riverview Lift Station. Item F, appointment to the Arts and Culture Commission of Joyce McIntyre. Item G, appointment to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board of Sonny Wilson and reappointment of Alex Thornton. Item H, appointment to the Planning Commission of Patrick Jones and reappointment of Kim Larriman. Item I, appointment to the Hapo Center Advisory Board of Jennifer Kuklinski. Item J, reappointment to the Tri-City Regional Hotel Motel Commission of Jerry Beach. Mr. Milne?
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve the consent agenda as read.
Second.
Got a motion by Mr. Milne and a second by Ms. Blaisdell. Ms. Clerk?
Yes. Councilmember Barajas,
Yes.
Councilmember Blaisdell,
Yes.
Councilmember Grimm,
Yes.
Councilmember Harpster,
Yes.
Councilmember Perales,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Milne,
Yes.
and Mayor Serrano.
Yes.
Great. Passes unanimous.
Thank you, Ms. Clerk. For those who are in attendance, I do see Mr. Jones and Ms. Wilson. Thank you for your willingness to serve our community. If you want to pop in and say something real quick, feel free. If not, no pressure. And certainly if you've got something that edges up here in the next few minutes, we will be into public comment. You're certainly welcome to take the mic at that point. But again, thank you for your willingness to serve our community. We really appreciate it. All right, I see both stagnant, so we're going to move on to item number 5, which is proclamations and acknowledgements. And this is for Attendance Awareness Month, proclamation, and I will be doing it to on behalf of the city for the United Way of Benton and Franklin Counties, the CEO, Dr. Loanne Ayers, and yeah, there we go. I knew you were here. Why don't you come on up? I will read this and then I'll present it to you. We can do a picture. Sound good? Excellent. So, Attendance Awareness Month, September 2024. Whereas good attendance in school remains essential to student achievement and progress towards graduation, and whereas chronic absence, missing 10% 2 or 3 days a month or more, is a predicator of academic trouble and dropout rates and weakens our communities and local economy. Whereas all students, even those who show up regularly, are affected by chronic absence because teachers must spend time reviewing for students who miss lessons. And whereas student absenteeism can be significantly reduced when schools, parents, and communities work together to monitor and promote good attendance and address hurdles that keep children from participating in school. And now, therefore, I, Pete Serrano, Mayor of the City of Pasco, Washington, do proclaim as September 2024 as Attendance Awareness Month, and encourage all residents to join in and stand with the nation in its commitment to the academic success of all students by focusing on reducing absenteeism to give all children an equal opportunity to learn, grow, and thrive academically, emotionally, and socially. So with that, we'll do a quick photo op. If you've got some words, feel free to share those, but we'll do that.
So you're in the picture.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. And one more. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Like I said, feel free to speak. If you don't want to, don't feel obligated.
Well, it's always a pleasure to
If you can turn on
Yeah.
at the base. There you go.
You're smarter if you read, right? Well, it's always a pleasure to come to my town here in the city of Pasco. You know, our United Way has been spearheading attendance matters since 2012, and Pasco School District and the city of Pasco were really first on board. So over that period of time, we've seen now almost a generation of kids who've grown up and now are hopefully part of our workforce, part of our voting population, and really part of the economic force that makes us special as the city of Pasco. But as you know, you got to show up. You got to show up to school because attendance does matter. You've got to show up to work, and here, this is another example of attendance really makes a difference. In the Pasco School District, at the last data point, 26% of kids were chronically absent. That's almost 5,000 kiddos. So it is a challenge that's really grown even bigger post-COVID, and it really takes all of us together to help support parents, to support educators and the staff at the school district, business owners who see a kid during school hours, maybe where they're not supposed to be, certainly public safety. We all have a stake in getting kids to school, to stay in school, so they can be academically successful. So I really appreciate the City of Pasco's support for our current and next generation of citizens here in our community. Thank you very much.
It is our pleasure to assist in partnering as much as we can. Obviously, the children. Well, I mean, the children are the future, but that's pretty cliche. But nonetheless, we need to do what we can to support them, their success. And as you mentioned, there's an opportunity for community members to be aware. Hopefully, there's that heightened awareness, and we want to just keep our kids in school and keep our community safe and keep them advancing. So, thank you very much. With that, we'll move on to item number 6, public comments. The public may address council on any item unless it relates to a scheduled public hearing. This item is provided to allow the opportunity to bring items to the attention of city council or to staff and to express an opinion on an issue. Its purpose is not to provide a venue for debate or for the posing of questions with the expectation of an immediate response. Some questions require consideration by council over time and after a deliberative process with input from a number of different sources. Some questions are best directed to staff, and I provided ways that you can use that earlier, specifically through the Ask Pasco and certain staff members who have access to specific information. Citizen comment will be limited to 3 minutes by myself. Those with lengthy messages are invited to summarize their comments or submit written information for consideration by the council outside of these formal meetings. Lastly, when you're called upon, please provide your name and your city or county and the state, certainly if you're outside of Washington. So with that, do we have any comments from the public? Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Grandma.
Good evening, council and staff. Thomas Grandbois, Big Maple Properties, 108 North 4th Avenue. I do have a comment for item 7B, so I'll hopefully be able to get up and talk about that as a separate item. And thank you for the talking about the importance of attendance here. I'm pretty regular here. I was hoping my son could make it through, but obviously he made it through about 30 seconds there. I want to talk about a few things. We talked about billboards in downtown a few weeks ago, and I've had a chance to meet with Mr. Lehman at Meadow Signs a couple times. And Mayor Serrano, you asked me to get signatures or talk with my neighbors, and Mr. Lehman agrees that downtown is not the right place for billboards. That's a non-issue. But I have been, as always, spending a lot of time, pretty much all my time downtown, talking with my neighbors and everything. And one resounding thing that came out was they wanted to thank both council members Harpster and Blaisdell very much for the work for spearheading the work at Peanuts Park North there, and of course the Parks Department. It has made an incredible difference in terms of safety and security in the downtown. So thank you both. Comments from park staff, same thing. They're highly appreciative, and of course my friends at Pasco Police say the same thing. So it's been incredible. Another thing that my neighbors mentioned was the expanding of the boundaries for those impacted at the Lewis Street overpass. And a number of them asked me to send a special thank you to Councilmember Barajas for bringing that up at the 11th hour. Even though they weren't able to benefit from it, they recognized the benefit for the community at large. Another comment, I just got back from vacation in San Pedro, Belize, and that's why I wasn't here that one Monday. Again, attendance is important. And I was talking with a restaurant that was also working as a nightclub. And where's this going? The restaurant manager was complaining to me about international fire code and the need for sprinklers. And so I just want to let you know that when people bring that up in downtown Pasco, it's not just our downtown, it's an international issue. And it's important that we do take a look at the safety and security of our businesses and their patrons as well. So I just got off the phone with another one of my neighbors, and she mentioned the sprinkler thing again, and I mentioned that it's still a possibility. There's still some discussions that maybe something is out there, and she was really excited about that. So thank you very much.
Go ahead and, if you need a little bit more time to address, because 7B is not going to be a hearing, so I don't know if you have to retain your comment for that.
I'll wait till they're done. I'm sure it'll be great, but I'll wait till they're done. I haven't formulated my thoughts completely on it. I was in a bit of a rush because Oh, you're not going to?
Not traditionally.
Okay.
Mr. Bruce, is that here from our practice, allowing public comment during 7B?
It would, yeah,
It would.
but you as the chair could allow if you decided you wanted to, but that would certainly be different than what we normally do for presentations.
I guess let's do this. If you intend to make it, we'll keep them tight.
I'll be
We'll
quick.
probably truncate it to like 2 minutes.
Yeah,
Kind of like what
that's-
we do in the workshop, 2 minutes in opposition or
Yeah, that's what I
for or
figured.
against. So we'll
I got
see you
it.
back up in a minute.
Thanks.
Well, soon. Do we have any additional public comment at this time? All right, Mr. Kidwell, you threw me a curve there. I thought you were heading down this way instead of out that way. Oh, okay. Yeah, he's got to get the steps, and he must have a challenge.
Tom Kidwell, 4320 Rio Grande, Pasco. I've been talking to the boys out on A Street, and at the stoplight at 40th East, there's no right turn lane there to get the people over to Amazon. And they say that stoplight is just plugged up for a half hour because of the fact that there's so many people trying to get to Amazon and there's no right turn lane, which I would think would be something the city should have been worrying about in the last 2 years instead of worrying about it today. Anyway, I think we ought to do something to alleviate the problem. And I even wonder if the city shouldn't be asking the Port District for that railroad track to make a street out of that instead of a railroad. There's no reason to have railroad there any longer. And why the Port of Pasco put a railroad track in, I'd say nobody knows, but there is one there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goodwill. I'm sure staff will look into that. I see the nod by City Manager Lincoln, so thank you. Do we have any additional public comment?
I'm Willis Shinkleshook. I have the property adjacent to the soccer field. I've been complaining about this property for 35 years. 35 years. People have damaged my property, destroyed my fence, broken the windows. I've called the cops more than 100 times. More. I get no response. None. You know? How would you like to have a neighbor like that? It's just terrible. 35 years. They sprinkled my property for 35 years. I got goat heads from hell. I've complained and complained. Any other neighbor in the world would have had to clean up their mess and shut the water off. Not the county. The sheriff won't even respond. The city won't respond to my 911 calls. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Recently, they put ground sterilant on my property. Goes into my property 15 feet. I want to know who's responsible. These people cannot possess a chemical applicator's license if they're going to trespass on the neighbors. Now, who's in charge? I want to be paid for my damaged fence. I want to be paid for the broken windows in my building that these little kids think it's all right to throw rocks through. I want to talk to the lawnmower man. Why are you throwing all your branches on my property? I've had it. I can't believe I'm here. I'm pissed. This county sucks. They suck. That soccer field shouldn't even be there. They're parked on 48 up and down the road. The worst thing is, there's no toilets. Are you absolutely out of your mind? A farmer would be violated from Illinois ticket for not having toilets. I complain here in this county about the toilet. Nothing done. I had to go to Olympia. That lady laughed at me. I said, if you think this is funny, my next call is to Washington, D.C. They bring the toilets in. I go look the other day, they're all got locks on them. Ain't the county paying the bill on the toilets? Who's responsible? Who's responsible? When am I going to get compensated? This is wrong. Really, really, really wrong. And you look at me all dumbfounded, you should. Because the sheriff's done nothing for me. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. It's disgusting. And I pay a lot of taxes. A lot. Way too many. For the service I'm getting. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll come back in a couple of weeks if I don't see them locks off of them toilets. It's wrong. They should move all of that. There's no room for all them people. 300 people. Send them out there to the soccer fields where they belong. Not in a little court where there's absolutely no parking facilities. No facilities on restrooms. It's ridiculous.
Thank
You
you.
guys are all responsible.
Do we have any additional public comments? Go ahead. Mr. Maloney.
Is this on?
It is.
Mary Mahoney, Pasco floodplain resident for 30-plus years. As currently planned, project number 19-053 resolution 4483 will destroy our floodplain as a green zone. We need an environmental impact statement as presented for the project, including impacts to adjacent homeowners, including threats of homelessness. See Eichmeyer Roundy 52322. Clean Water Act violations, Migratory Bird Treaty Act violations. The sewage system already gouged within the floodplain has wiped out 8 floodplain American bald eagles and has had broken lines 3 times, causing flooding. I've taken over 500 photos of that. Again, I request a readable map that includes parcel numbers, addresses, and costs to the residents, as well as a start date. Next, regarding animal control resolution 4481, quote, number 17999, outdoor dog runs need to be included to comply with the Animal Welfare Act and to avoid more animal cruelty violations. As animal control is an animal research provider, a more accurate name would be Tri-City Research Animal Provider, or TRAP, T-R-A-P. See City Attorney Lee Kerr's public comments on 4119, as well as comments regarding due process omissions. Past animal control and WSU contracts are available. Last, funds for the aquatic center need to be reduced. Refocus our funds where they're needed, and that is, among other things, a new Boys and Girls Club and a new Martin Luther King Center, as well as an update to the Pasco Memorial Pool. See Prosser for guidance on the building that they recently did for $6 million, the Boys and Girls Club, and for their crime reduction statistics, which they credit to the Boys and Girls Club. I also want to say we need to request an updated list of animal control and rescues who provide WSU research animals. It's heartbreaking to foster a dog and give it to a rescue group that just gives it to WSU for research, and you can get that through President Schultz. Today's comments and past comments by me are for the record and to put Pasco on notice. Under 3. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any additional public comments? Going twice? Going a third time? With that, we are now done with item number 6, which is public comment. We're moving on to item number 7, which is reports from committees and or officers. It's Mr. Perales.
Oh, I'll try not to be the first one. Thank you, Mayor. I attended a few events last week. I attended the Restore City Church's Teacher Appreciation Day. I got asked to come there and speak along with other people in the community, and it was just a night to motivate the teachers for this new upcoming school year, and got to talk with a lot of teachers. Pasco dance team was there. That was pretty awesome to see, and live and in person, and actually close. And just talk with other teachers. Talk with Michelle Whitney, and looking forward. It sounds like she's going to have some type of presentation here in a couple weeks. So that was good to catch up with her. And then I also attended the Latin Business Association's advisory board meeting. We talked about the Fiery Foods Festival, parking issues in downtown. They also wanted to extend a kudos and thank you to the Pasco Police Department for in the last couple of weeks addressing the homelessness problems and the public, the camping and all that stuff, and they're really appreciative. So that was good to hear. And I did also speak with a couple of businesses that were able to get some of that CDBG micro grant money. So they were very thankful for the council and also the city for that. And just talked about all sorts of stuff happening with some of those businesses in downtown. It was great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prowlis. Mr. Grimm.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I joined Director Buckley for our entrance finance audit for the year of the city of Pasco, and really nothing to report other than she represented the city very politely and professionally, and just this routine audit going through just our compliance and financial statements and stuff, and just look forward to the exit interview, which always has the important stuff. So anyways, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grimm. Seeing no further lights, we can move on to item 7B, which is presentation of inspection services for rental program. And looks like Mr. Gonzalez, your light's on. Thank you.
Yes, good evening, mayors and members of council. Staff has spoken quite a bit about the need to increase housing options and availability. It's been quite a focus of ours for several years now in the city, with the most recent estimates indicating that Pasco need to accommodate additional 23,000 housing units by the year 2045. One of the strategies that came out of our housing action plan, which was adopted last fall, was the need to preserve the existing housing stock from falling into states of disrepair. And so along those lines, I'd like to introduce several of our staff from the department who will present to you this evening about one of the programs that we offer here at the City of Pasco. That's our rental inspection program. This is a team that averages about 3,100 inspections of rental units in Pasco per year. And with that, I'll pass it on to our inspection services manager, Troy Hendren, our rental inspector, Dan Gallatin, and our code enforcement lead, Rosanna Johnson. So take it away.
Good evening, council. Again, my name is Troy Hendren. I'm the inspection services manager. So tonight we're going to do something a little differently. We have a lot of moving parts in the inspection services division. And one of those moving parts is the rental division, the rental program. So what we're going to have is our lead code officer, Rosanna Johnson, and our fire safety, our rental inspector, Dan Gallatin, talk a little bit tonight about the program and do the PowerPoint presentation. So go ahead, Rosanna and Dan, go ahead and get started.
My water. Good evening, Mayor and Council. First, I want to thank you for this opportunity to tell you about the rental program, which we have had since 1997 here in City of Pasco. As Troy and Jacob mentioned, my name is Rosanna. I am the lead for the code division, and I've been with the city for about 11 years now, and I'm joined by Daniel.
My name is Daniel Gallatin. I am the first dedicated staff rental inspector for the City of Pasco. I've been with the City of Pasco for about a year and a half. Before that, I was a pest control specialist and then a home inspector. I love what I do because my passion is educating homeowners and residents on all aspects of home maintenance and life and safety issues. It actually fills my heart every day to know that what I do saves lives, impacts the community in positive ways, and I get to help people protect their investment.
So I noticed tonight we have the council goals for 2024-2025 coming up on the agenda. What we do as a team is always look at the goals and see how our job duties align with them, what we can do to help achieve those goals. Two, the rental program highlights are promoting high quality of life through quality programs and services and promote and encourage economic vitality. So recognizing that housing is a critical determinant of health, the program can emphasize the importance of ensuring that every individual in Pasco has access to healthy, secure, and stable housing. And the program really is mutually beneficial. It's not just tenants that benefit from it. Our property owners, managers, neighbors, other city departments, and the community at large really does benefit. The property owners and managers are informed of minimum standards and how to protect their investments. We are able to give them an inspection report from a certified inspector that says your house meets minimum standards, and these are the items that we recommend you look at to maintain your investment. The process also helps to identify any issues that can lead to liability or future increased costs if they continue to be ignored. Our focus really is on safety and cleanliness. So we're not looking for luxury upgrades, we're looking for minimum standards. And that helps us to ensure that we have fair rental practices and that we're not driving up those costs. For our tenants, they're guaranteed safe and healthy living environment, and they have recourse if we have unresponsive landlords. Things that don't get maintained, we can help them along with that process. Approximately 31% of our households in Pasco are actually renter occupied. So for those neighbors out there, unfortunately at times renters aren't maintaining the properties in the same way that you would where you hold a mortgage, right? So if we have any issues there, then the tenants or the neighbors, can contact us, and we can work with the tenants and the landlords to make sure that those issues are resolved.
Quick question. Did you say 30 or 13?
31%.
31, thanks.
For our fire and police, early issue resolution can reduce the burden on our emergency services, so reduce costs for them. It helps to ensure that they're going into places that are safe and maintained when they have to respond and only have seconds to react. Preventing property deterioration contributes to reduction in blight, which reduces likelihood in crime in our neighborhoods, helping our police department. And our rental program actually also helps to contribute to the fire and police strategic plans by reducing housing displacement, because we're keeping properties on the housing market for occupancy. And we're promoting code compliance, which supports the maintenance of the city's insurance rating through the Washington State Bureau. And a fair rental market really enhances the city's image overall, making sure that it's attractive not only to renters but investors.
So when are inspections required? They're required during the initial licensing and then every biennial cycle after that. We do inspections upon complaints from, I'm sorry.
For the audience that's
Okay.
watching, sorry. I mean, you're projecting great here, but I just want to make sure they pick you up. Thank you.
Upon complaint by the tenant, we'll do an inspection also when requested by a landlord. Inspections are conducted by a code officer or an approved third party. What is inspected? Dwelling units and accessory structures. We're looking for life, safety, and health issues. Our inspections have a pass with correction, or a fail. All inspections are conducted based on application of the International Property Maintenance Code. We inspect to assure all dwellings comply with the minimum habitability, and pardon me, I have a hard time with that word sometimes. Requirements for life, safety, and health. For example, the proper installation and functionality of smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, the overall safety of electricity, plumbing, structural issues, and for adequate and functional escape and rescue openings. The inspections failing to meet these standards do require a 24-hour reinspection, so that the most egregious issues are taken care of immediately for the safety of the tenant. A vast majority of these inspections have voluntary compliance through education and effective communication. So on the dwelling units must comply with the Pasco Municipal Code Title 5.60 and the International Property Maintenance Code to obtain a City of Pasco rental license.
So these are the items on this list, and you can read that. It's all in your agenda packet. That is listed in the Pasco Municipal Code and what is referenced in the International Property Maintenance Code. So when we're doing inspections, we are focusing strictly on enforcing the habitability requirements that are outlined in the state laws under Title 59.18 and within Chapter 5.60 of the Pasco Municipal Code and the IPMC. We're not looking at civil matters or anything that's in a lease agreement. It's strictly in these regulations.
So in these pictures here, some of the most common things that we find are blocked egress, escape and rescue openings. Here you'll see a lot of clutter. It makes it very difficult for whoever's in the structure to get out in case of a fire, and also makes it very difficult for someone trying to get in to rescue them.
I do want to let everybody know that every picture you see in our presentation is from a property that we've inspected in Pasco. So these are all probably within the last year or so within our city.
So here on the left side, another one of the common things that we find in rentals is people have a tendency to pack storage items and clothing up against water heaters. In this instance here, a tenant had piled up a bunch of laundry against the water heater. It caught fire, and we ended up having to vacate the building. And then with over here on the right-hand side, you will see an improper slope on the water heater exhaust. That can allow gases back into where the water heater is, carbon monoxide primarily, which is potentially lethal.
In the middle photo there, you'll see a propane tank hooked up to a camping style stove on top of an actually permanently installed electric stove. Unfortunately, we see that more often than not in some properties. It's really common in summer, and then in places where the landlord is maybe not maintaining the kitchen appliances or even the heater. Unfortunately, we see tenants bring in propane and gas generators to heat their apartments, or they'll use the oven. So in 2009, Washington State actually enacted a law that requires carbon monoxide detectors be installed in all residential units. You have to have them when you sell your home and in apartments that are rented to the public for this very reason. There was an incident in 2006 where the storm knocked out all power, and that included causing carbon monoxide to leak into these homes, causing over 1,000 people to become ill and 8 people to die.
So in this next slide here on the left-hand side, what you'll see is the duct running up and the duct that's connecting to it, which that is a dryer duct connected to a bathroom duct. The tenant did not know that this was an issue. The landlord didn't know this was an issue. And through education, the situation was rectified immediately. The issue there is that dryer lint goes into the exhaust fan and is a potential fire hazard. On the right-hand side here, we have a dryer duct connected to a kitchen exhaust duct. So, I mean, it's good if you like your shirts to smell like bacon. However, lint and grease create a very serious potential fire hazard.
And while to some people these modifications may not seem like anything really big, it really is an extreme fire hazard. And I'm sure that our fire department can attest to how many residential fires we've had that started with a ventilation fan or a space heater. So these help to prevent a lot of those fires from occurring. Apologies for the photos on this one, but it's important.
So what we have here on the left-hand side is what you see as cockroaches. Cockroaches are very prolific. They spread through buildings very quickly. They left untreated, they're very difficult to get rid of. Cockroaches are also one of the most common problems that we find in any home, rental inspections, things of that nature. They are the #1 cause of asthma in small children worldwide.
And so the middle photo is bed bugs. Unfortunately, these are two pests that we find often in Pasco. If they go left untreated, they're going to cause a lot of damage. They cause health issues. The photo in the middle top is of a tenant who had a bed bug infestation, and those are sores from bites on his arm. Actually had an allergic reaction and had to go to the hospital. And the right is an insanitary condition in a multifamily apartment complex. So in multifamily complexes, obviously what you do in one unit doesn't stay in your unit. It spreads through the whole apartment and the rest of the complex. And unfortunately will damage their investment and the health of the tenants that are living there.
So what we have here are structures, staircases in throughout apartment complexes. These are very large apartment complexes, well over 100 units in these apartments. The deterioration of the concrete stairs, which I found left like this over time, is going to be very dangerous for the tenants. So they are in the process of getting this corrected.
The reason we show these is that they're great examples of a lack of routine maintenance at our apartment complexes. If you have a maintenance person at a place that's over 100 units, they should be checking for these routinely and conducting for surveys for deferred maintenance, making sure that these don't happen. And these two on the left are at apartment complexes where they take a lot of Section 8 and HUD housing vouchers. So unfortunately, it's a lot of our lower income tenants that are less likely to complain about issues in their apartments.
So what we have here are home job electrical issues. They're pretty in the face that they're a serious hazard. So I always recommend to people, let the electricians do the job. Don't hire Rosanna. I know she said that all the pictures were taken in the field, but these were actually at her house. So.
I wouldn't dare. The middle one is pretty ingenious, but we do not recommend any of this.
So the rental program can be of further benefit to the community through complementary approaches such as incentivizing compliance and increasing our public outreach and education programs. Education programs like putting on classes for the public, for landlords and for tenants, to teach them about home maintenance and how the rental program inspection process works.
So our rental program has consistently succeeded with voluntary compliance since it was implemented, but we've seen a huge increase in compliance and property maintenance in the last 16 months. And in that time, we converted one of our code enforcement officer positions to be a dedicated rental inspector. Instead of having to switch back and forth between the two practices, now he focuses solely on these rental properties, and that encourages the ability to communicate effectively with our property owners and managers. And so all of that, the success of the proactive rental program and being able to communicate and reinvesting in our community is really leading back to economic vitality. When you review these approaches, please keep in mind that any reconfiguration of the rental program does take time. There would be a lot of stakeholder input. And if we were to move away from the current 2-year cycle that we have, it would be impossible to revert because our code actually predates the state law. And there is a big difference between proactive and reactive programs. So we understand with competing financial priorities, jurisdictions have to choose between the two. Reactive programs, they save money up front, and they can result in higher long-term costs for the community at the end of the day, though. The lack of preventative action really places a greater financial burden on the protective services, and it poses significant risk not only to the occupants, but also our emergency responders. More than half of Pasco is within the low to moderate income census tracts, and those are the areas where we see the highest violation of recurring issues in properties, and also the areas where the tenants are least likely to submit a complaint about their property because they're unaware of the legal processes and their rights under the state law.
I want to take this opportunity to remind everybody to check their smoke alarms and their carbon monoxide detectors every 6 months. Mm-hmm. Also, I would like to put an open invite to City Council to ride along with me any day to see how the rental program works in action. I'm a fun guy, and because of my amazing wife, I've always got snacks. So thank you for your time.
He's very informative as well. He can teach you a lot. On the last slide, this is really just for your information. We've provided a lot of resources to the information that we give to you. Everything that we talk to our tenants and managers and landlords in the community about, we ensure that it's backed by actual facts or law or code. We do our best to give them the proper information. And with that, we'll stand here for any questions.
Thank you. Before we get to the public comment, which I know there's some interest there, do I have any questions, Ms. Barajas?
Thank you. Not exactly a question. Well, yeah, it is. I'll throw it in there. Just want to say thank you, Ms. Johnson. I did do a ride along with you maybe 2 years ago or something like that. Very informative. It's amazing of the work that you do, everything you see. But I do appreciate that you're now focusing a lot more on educating and making sure people know their rights as a renter and what they should and shouldn't do in their property. So I will be calling Mr. Troy. I will be calling to set up a ride along, please. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Barajas. Mr. Grimm?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And you guys, yeah, thank you for the presentation. Just a couple of questions, and you may not, I'm not going to try to put you on the spot. If you have to come back with some of these numbers, I understand. But what, for instance, what of the 3,100, I think, inspections you said you do a year, how many, what's our compliance rate, or what's the failure rate, maybe the better way of wording that?
I don't know that I have an exact number on the compliance rate, but the number of properties that fail the initial inspection is about 20 to 25% annually. And that can be as small as just missing all your smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors, but that is a huge life-saving item that we need to have for minimum habitability inspections. It doesn't mean that they're going to get a mark against them. Rather, Mr. Gallatin here will go out to the property within 24 hours or longer if necessary to verify that those have been installed.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, one of the items we've been looking at and everything like that is, of course, affordable housing, and that's where kind of I think there's an intersection here of you make some great points about how this can really help long term. Just maintaining properties and that kind of stuff. But I think there's another component of it. And, just curious about some of the costs and, what this could potentially do to, rental costs. And so some of my other questions are, what is like the inspection, what's the fee for the inspections that people have to pay?
So we have one of the lowest fees in the state, and it's not actually for the inspection itself. If you have a single family dwelling unit, you pay $50 for that unit. That includes processing of the application and your inspection. So our inspections are actually considered complimentary for that initial inspection cycle and every biennial inspection, And then property owners have the opportunity to hire a third-party inspector if they wish to not have the government in their home. They have those options.
Okay, no, thank you. So, and another interesting thing that you said that our rental inspection program predates the state. And it would be curious, let's say, for instance, we went with the state. I'm just curious what the state mandates versus what the city of Pasco mandates. And, even if we were to abandon, the city of Pasco's rental program, what would we still be obligated to do with the state? And it would be really interesting, perhaps even in a follow-up email, to see, man, if we really got away from this, we'd be doing 87% of it anyways. And so, yeah, it would be really interesting to see what the state mandates too. And I apologize, I didn't give that to you in advance. Yeah.
Not a problem. I can't answer all of it, but I would say that the biggest thing we would see is a lack of deferred maintenance, a rise in deferred maintenance. Unfortunately, the majority of the properties that do fail are those that are in very bad condition by the time we actually get to them. So if we don't do this, we will get complaints and we'll be at those properties at the point where we have to displace the tenants. Mm-hmm. So the whole goal that I see of a proactive program is that we are preventing displacement of our tenants. We're taking care of that old housing stock that we have, not just the new housing stock, but ensuring everything that's here is already maintained. And by using the International Property Maintenance Code, we're not requiring them to come to current standards. They have to meet existing standards at the time the building was constructed. So the expenses really are not that much. If there is something that is required that might be cost prohibitive to the owner, as long as it's not an immediate safety hazard, we work with them on a timeline. So we always work with them, trying to balance that of not incurring additional costs on the owner that would transfer over to the tenant.
No, and I appreciate that. Yeah, again, I realize that there's a real balancing act in all of this. So, no, I thank you for your presentation, your time tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Mr. Perales, sorry. I was reading Blaisdell Perales.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few questions. So when you're saying, so that you guys do inspections every 2 years?
Yes.
So,
Biannually.
so at apartments then, every 2 years, like, so some of the new ones that are going up on more than 100, you guys will be there every 2 years to
At the
inspect?
newer apartments, so we have it on a cycle right now that if you have gotten your certificate of occupancy in the last year, then we're not inspecting you and you'll be doing your next cycle.
Okay.
So it could be a year or 3 years before we get there, but we rely on the fact that they've just received building permits and inspections and that they've caught all those things that need to be seen.
So I guess my other question is, with the increasing housing stock that we're creating, do we have staff capacity to keep pace with all those, townhomes and I guess apartments?
So at this point in time, we have Mr. Gallatin and then we have an additional temporary inspector who puts in 40 hours a week to do that for us, to kind of pick up some of that, to make sure we are running this program as it needs to be run. And we don't inspect 100% of every apartment building. We do follow the state law on that. So if it's 20 or more units, then there's a percentage that we look at, not every unit, unless there are severe issues and they fail, then we have the opportunity to go in if necessary.
And you guys only inspect the ones that are actually going through the rental program with the city of Pasco. There's obviously rentals out there that we don't know about.
Right, only if they're licensed.
And if there's a complaint against those.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Another question is, I wrote down rentals and yard maintenance, because I do see a lot of individuals who are renting homes, and just the lawn maintenance is they're not doing anything.
Right.
What is the best way to make it more, I guess, punitive, I guess, if you will, from that perspective? Because I feel like I watched the code enforcement meetings, and some of these people don't even show up. So what are we doing with that, especially because they're renters, and because I'd hate to go on, penalize the homeowner or the property owner. It'd be the person renting. So what are thoughts and ideas to start making that more, making more of an impact on that?
I don't have a full answer on that, but I would say they are two separate items. We don't want to necessarily use the rental program as a punitive measure because it is more about education and voluntary compliance. However, in our checklist, we do look for anything that is a landscaping issue that might be a fire hazard, and educate the tenants while we're there as well. But also they have the opportunity to contact us in a code enforcement capacity, and that handled through that process is separately.
Yeah, no, and I was just gonna make a comment. I'd rather not talk about I'm just talking about fire sprinklers tonight. I don't want to increase this meeting by an hour or so. I'd rather have you guys Troy come back in another meeting. We can discuss it then. Invite people from the public. It gives. I'll go for an hour. We can go back and forth, but I don't want to do that tonight. I really just want to stick to the rental property. To today, I'd just rather do that, and then also bring up other issues like a vacant property registration. I've seen a lot of things on YouTube that I think that's something we should do here. And also talk about the property maintenance stuff, because I live over in Linda Lavisa, and it's getting out of control. And a lot of neighbors aren't doing anything. People are moving in, and I'm finding out there's a lot of them are renters. And I have no problem against renters. I rented for a long time before I bought my home, but people aren't mowing their lawns, and they're causing fire issues and stuff like that. And especially this past year with 4th of July, people were catching fire on all sorts of, people's backyards that people aren't maintaining. So I think those are things we really need to just focus on. And so I'd rather bring those up at a future meeting, and we can ask questions, and maybe you guys can bring ideas, especially if we give you guys notice that, maybe do some research and maybe provide some solutions that we can tackle, whether it's from a budget standpoint or really just resources standpoint. So other than that, that's all one last thing, since we're on rentals, and then I'll be quiet. Airbnbs. That's something we don't do here in Pasco. You talked about, I wrote down, we said promote and encourage economic vitality. What is the perspective of, the code enforcement about Airbnbs? Is that something that, with your guys' guidance, that we can look into and, craft policy?
I can take a look at that. I think I think from what we've heard consistently is kind of a 50-50 split from community members, at least the phone calls that we receive about folks who are interested in pursuing Airbnbs and short-term rentals versus those that are opposed to it. Our code somewhat prohibits Airbnbs through the language already in our existing PMCs. I think there's plenty of research that is beginning to come out with respects to whether Airbnbs are a negative or positive on affordable housing in particular, but it is essentially increasing the amount of short-term stays in a particular housing unit, wherever it may be located. I think that's something that's been brought up in the past, and certainly something that staff can take a look at with if that's council's direction.
Yeah, I'll bring it up. I'll do a little bit more research, maybe send some emails, but I would definitely like to bring that. I've gotten a few emails since being on council about short-term rentals, and so that's why I brought it up. You know, it's kind of rental adjacent, so appreciate your time and keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pross, and thank you for volunteering your evening for a listening session on fire sprinklers. With that, Ms. Blaisdell.
Thank you. I have a question about pests and sanitation. If you deem a property unlivable, where are you moving those people to?
So we have several motels throughout the city that we contract with, and that way we can give emergency relocation if necessary. We do our best to not displace anybody. If we can't put them in a motel because it was at their own negligence and not the owners, then we work with the Housing Resource Center through DSHS and other community organizations to try to find them housing.
Are you notifying the motels, hotels of their issues?
If
so
that was the reason for displacement, we would.
Okay. That's all I wanted to know.
Gee, I wonder where that question came from. Mr. Harpster.
Thanks. Like Councilman Barajas, I did do a ride along earlier this year with Mr. Hendren, and was really surprised by how unkept some properties here in Pasco are. So definitely appreciate your guys' passion and what you're doing. One thing that'd be helpful for me and maybe other council members is a follow-up email from staff detailing the state requirements of a rental special program. Because what I could find when reviewing the agenda was, I think I found the RCW specific to it, but not sure. And there was a lot of municipalities may do this and may elect to do this, not a lot of will and shall. And so that'd just be helpful for me to understand that, if we could do that. My questions are not organized in a good way, but so bear with me. How many employees, you may have already answered this, does it take to complete these 3,100 inspections annually?
Right now, we have one full-time staff inspector and a temporary inspector. And all code officers are trained, and we have property maintenance and housing certifications through ICC, so we can back up if necessary, but it's really one dedicated.
Okay. And then I think you said on average 20 to 25% of homes do not pass inspection on the first time?
Correct.
Is that right? With regards to Director Gonzalez's point of taking care of our existing housing stock, as a department, are you guys tracking the reinvestment dollars with this program as far as landlords needing to spend, $15, $100 to fix these issues? And if so, what is that amount to date since the program started?
Unfortunately, we don't have that tracked at this point in time. I'm sure that there's a way to get that information. Our system just doesn't give it to us outright.
Okay. So 20 to 25% do not pass the first time. After that, when they have a re-inspection, how often or how soon in time does that re-inspection occur? Or is it dependent on the issue that's found?
Correct.
Yeah, 24 hours is immediate life and safety issues, missing smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors not properly installed, not functional, things of that nature, and blocked rescue openings.
The majority is anything that can put the tenants in imminent danger.
Yes.
So if there's a fear that whatever exists could cause them harm within a certain time frame, then we act within that time frame. We work with the landlord to try to figure out what is appropriate in each situation. They're all unique. I mean, there are standards, but each property has its own unique issues.
Okay. Thanks. Why, and I'm not trying to be facetious with this question, but why wouldn't we rely on the landlord to inspect their property and keep it up to certain standards. Why does the city need to be involved at all? What's your thought on that?
This has been discussed when the program was first put into place. So 1997 was when it was initially enacted. There were a lot of discussions through council, planning commission, and community stakeholders. In 1999 actually, it was challenged by some landlords and some tenants. Tenants didn't want to give entry and the landlords didn't want to make the repairs. The city actually sued that landlord at that point in time because his housing was so uninhabitable, it was causing issues with the neighboring properties. And that started another situation where the landlords in turn sued the city as well. This actually went all the way to the Washington Supreme Court and the Ninth Circuit of Appeals. And they ruled with the city of Pasco. Because landlords were not maintaining the property, the city needed this recourse to be able to hold them accountable when necessary. But like I said before, we rely on education more than anything else.
Sure. Okay. So, you know, the name of the game really, I think, in your guys' minds is safety. And I appreciate that. I used to think, you know, most important departments were police, fire, public works. Maybe I put code enforcement at third. Sorry, Director Sarah. But definitely one of the more important departments. So with safety in mind and landlords not taking care of their property, I get that. And there's so many, like I mentioned, unkept properties. So again, not being facetious here, but why not inspect everybody's home? It'd be a staffing issue, but really if we're going to inspect rental properties, why not everybody's property?
I guess the difference is that if you live in your own home, you can choose what you do with your own life. But if you have somebody else in your home, you need to be held to a different standard because you likely may not keep it to the same standard as if you were living there.
Appreciate that. And then, would you say that most municipalities in the state have a program like this? From what I could find online, it looked like Othello was the closest to us. Most of the cities on the west side do, but very few on this side of the state do.
I think there's around 13 in Washington that have this program. Pasco is actually a basis for a lot of cities in Washington and across the U.S. A while ago, other cities in the Tri-Cities were wanting to implement their programs and actually partnered with us to learn how we do it. We sit on a rental housing roundtable, which is all the jurisdictions in Washington that have programs. And we meet quarterly and discuss our issues and discuss the differences between our programs. So we can absolutely get more information if that's asked of us.
Okay, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Harpster. Mr. Grimm again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one follow-up. Thank you again, Ms. Johnson and everybody for coming. And perhaps this is a better question for the directors. You had mentioned it's budget time and all of that. And just kind of wondering how this, just affects, whether it's revenue neutral or this is something, that's costing the city every year, adding to the bottom line. And so maybe with staff and the email, if you can, follow up about compliance and, the state standards versus the local standards. I know I'm meeting with our city manager and deputy city manager next week about the budget, but this would be an interesting factoid to have, just as part of our consideration also. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Barajas again.
Yeah, just one last comment. I'm not sure if all council members know this. I'm pretty sure some staff know this. Our code enforcement department not only does the inspection, the education, and uphold the code. My ride-along, my unique experience was that Ms. Johnson, Rosanna here, has a huge heart. We did a ride-along along the river, and we did bump into some homeless individuals, and she didn't displace them or send them somewhere where potentially they didn't want to go. But she did actually carry several bags of food in her car and information, resources to send them somewhere else. Either call for help with food, gave them a bag of non-perishable food. So I do want to say kudos to not only you, Rosanna, but Troy. Your department is led with a huge heart. That education, that extra step, that extra that your department does, your staff does, it resonates across the city. So thank you again.
Thank you. We do our best to work with other community partners as much as we can. And A lot of the food bags and hygiene kits we get are donated by the Tri-Cities Home Consortium, so CDBG funding, and they'll bring us bags and we can hand those out, which is nice.
Thank you. Well, we greatly appreciate that information. It's always nice to know a little bit more. I think we all get complaints on both sides of the fence in regards to this. One of property owners maybe not wanting you all in there, and two of some folks feeling like they're not getting inspected enough, and we realize you're in that pickle of doing what's A, statutorily required, and B, what we can afford. So we appreciate the work you're doing, and thank you for the presentation. With that, as mentioned earlier, I'm going to go ahead and open this to public comment. We're going to run this public comment section kind of similar to the workshop meetings. We'll offer 2 comments, 2 minutes per side. Total of 4 comments. 1 pro or 2 pro and 2 against, and 2 minutes each. So, Mr. Grambois, I know you had some thoughts.
Thank you, Mayor. I saw this on the agenda, and I really wanted to talk about it specifically because it's something that's impacted me on 3 aspects of my life. One as a former Code Enforcement Board member, another as a landlord, and then another as a neighbor. I'm with Councilmember Harpster. I was shocked when I joined the Code Board and I saw some of those hearings that we had, that landlords that were willing to come up and make excuses for the conditions that their folks were living in, and it was shocking to me. And the amount of work that the code enforcement folks had put in place to try and mitigate these issues, but they decided to come forward, and it made me think about, you know, if these landlords were willing to come up and say, make these excuses to all of us that were up there, what were they telling their tenants? And if there was no inspection program, what would they tell their tenants to just get away with whatever they wanted? We saw, you know, those pictures tell enough of a story there. It was terrible. Now, that was in 2017 when I joined that board. I became a landlord in 2018, and I can tell you that I sing the praises of the inspection folks. I want them in my properties because they see things that I don't necessarily see. Sure, it's challenging when they say, oh, you got to get an earthquake strap on that hot water heater that's been there for 15 years, but you do it because it's important for safety. And as somebody who purchased a former slumlord-owned property, they worked really well with me to help us bring the property up to the standards that it needed to be. It wasn't just a, hey, you got to do this now or else. And also code enforcement is able to put landlords who care in touch with programs that help do things like repair damaged roofs, repair HVAC, things like that will increase the quality of life for their tenants. And then third, as a neighbor, there was some talk about, you know, how do we report our neighbor, or how do we control things like that in the neighborhood? Well, Ask Pasco is a great tool, and those complaints will go to the landlord, and then the landlord chooses, hey, I have to do this or else. And quite often landlords, if they do care, they don't necessarily want to be on properties all the time. So it's a good opportunity for the city to talk to the landlords and let them know as well. So thank you. I think it's a great program, and I appreciate you giving me these 2 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Do we have any additional public comment on this issue? Mr. Bauman?
Good evening, City Council. Thank you for this opportunity. I have a significantly different experience than Mr. Grandbois, and I do appreciate his perspective. I was threatened with a $1,000 a day fine when I was renting a house and did not want the City of Pasco inspector to come inspect about my health and safety because, frankly, the inspector is not there for my health and safety. They're there to do a job, and I can appreciate that, but my health and safety is my responsibility. With that being said, I do believe that if a tenant would like help or believes they need help, I think that help should be available. I also had the same branch of the Pasco government take away my business license. And I am disappointed to tell you that while I was told that that was taken care of at the time, that was not the case because I'm back in that condition again. The reason for that is they tell me that I have to provide them the contract between myself and my business and the private business that I am renting from. And they say that I have to provide them my contract, a private business to a private business. And I was assured 2 years ago that that was taken care of, and that has not been taken care of because I find myself in that place again. So while I do appreciate how that there are people in different conditions than I am, I do certainly do that. I absolutely believe in a hand up. I believe that last time I looked at it, I believe the conditions, I believe it was there's 97% compliance. I have no idea where the 25%, I'm assuming the 25% of, you know, that don't pass inspection, I'm assuming that means new houses completed. Perhaps it is the rental thing. I've never been able to find that. Last I knew it was a 97% compliance. So 97% of the people put up with 3% of the people that are not in compliance. So thank you for hearing me.
Thank you. Mr. Mountain, I know this is typically not an engagement opportunity. But
Sure.
It sounds like there's a splitting the baby approach whereby the landlord has an option to provide a private service for the inspection. Do you recall whether or not that was offered?
It was absolutely not offered. I followed up at length. Prior to, I resisted the process all the way up to the point where I was told that tomorrow I will be fined $1,000 a day. I can't afford that. I followed through with it. The inspector was in my house for less than 5 minutes. And if you're truly there for my health and safety and to follow the 2 full pages at that time, it was front and back 2 full pages of checklist items that they were going through. There is no way to do that. I'm a builder. I've been a builder. My family's builders, and I'm very aware of what's going on. And I recognize that I'm different than some, but I'm the tenant in this scenario, and I didn't want them there. And so that I wasn't living with a slumlord, and that was not offered. And I was threatened with, you will pay this. And I went through the process. I did everything that I knew and could, and then I followed up with it afterwards and sat down with the lead in that department and said, please explain what just happened, because you forced me to do something that you didn't follow up with, which was you did not follow up with that. And 5 minutes inside the walls of my home is not enough for you to ensure my safety and well-being. Any further?
No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. I think, I will be honest, I learned a bit about that third approach, so maybe there's an opportunity just to make sure that the public's well aware that there is that third approach of having a private, but I'm sure, I'm not a landlord, so I don't interact with you all. I guess that's just one suggestion, is just making sure that's well aware to those, both residents, the lessees and the lessors, so. With that, we'll move on to item number 8, which is hearings and council actions on ordinances and resolutions relating thereto. They're none listed. So now we'll move on to item number 9, ordinances and resolutions not relating to hearings. We got ordinance number 4724, declaration of public use and necessity. This is going to come from Deputy City Manager Sigbell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I will conveniently punt this to our city attorney.
Great, yeah, I hate to miss out. The long and short of it is what we have here is a rarity for the city of Pasco. I think in the last 10 years, I don't think I've, hope it wasn't something I said. We don't often find ourselves in a situation like this because we have other ways that we can try to be able to accomplish certain tasks and public works functions and to be able to provide the services that the city does. So essentially what we're in a situation where we've unfortunately not been able to negotiate and find the property owner to be able to complete this project. I do have good news to report that the resolution, one of the first steps we have to do in this condemnation process is to put a letter out, an official notice to the property owner. That went unresponded to for quite some time. I was fortunately able to make contact. I was contacted by a local attorney on Friday who was able to authorized that he was in fact representing the property owner. They had actually been out of town. They'd been in another location dealing with some family issues for quite some time, and he was hopeful that we could resolve this short of having to go and file the petition in court. So good news, bad news is, the bad news is we still need council to pass this tonight so that we have that authority to move forward. You're basically declaring that you're going, that it's needed for public necessity and use. And then you're authorizing our office to be able to move forward if we do need to go forward and file that petition. That's the bad news. The good news is it sounds like we should be able to get this wrapped up short of having to do that. Fingers crossed.
Thank you, Mr. Ferguson. Do we have any questions or comments from council? If not, Mr. Milne.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve ordinance number 4724, declaring public use and necessary regarding the City of Pasco Broadmoor and Sanford Parkway intersection improvement project and authorizing condemnation.
Second.
I'll give that one to Miss Barajas because Miss Blaisdell's very active, even though I think she beat her. So motion by Mr. Milne, second by Miss Barajas. Before we get there, I do want to say that the city doesn't take this responsibility lightly. Entering into an action whereby we tell a property owner we need this for the public necessity, for safety in this case, for traffic and a couple of other things. You know, it's not something we like to do, and it sounds like Mr. Ferguson, hopefully the delay was totally outside of the scope of this, and hopefully we can get a good resolution nonetheless. It's something that we need to do for the betterment of the city. So with that, we got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Got a 6-1 with Mr. Perales dissenting. Thank you. Let's move on to item B, resolution number 4484, Greyhound Inc., Pasco Intermodal Transportation Facility Lease Addendum. Director of Fun, Rice. Hopefully there's a Greyhound tracks, not buses. That'll be fun.
Would be fun, but unfortunately it is the bus line. But so good evening, Mayor and Council. This resolution for consideration is for the extension of the current lease with Greyhound lines at the Pasco Multimodal Station. This recently lapsed lease included one 5-year extension option, which should be exercised if both parties are in agreement. I'll note that the current lease has lapsed as Greyhound was considering changing the amount of leased operating space. However, ultimately concluded to remain in the same space for this extension. A couple more details. Greyhound has been over at the multimodal station since 1998. The most recent lease was signed in 2018 with the 5-year initial term and then this 5-year extension option. The extension option included a potential increase in rental rate and related lease excise tax. So we did consult with our city's real estate representative who performed comparison and determined that a 3% annual rate increase aligns with current market standards. You'll note that this 3% is reflected in this information here, both the amount of rent and the related excise tax. 5-year total of $187,301.28 for this extension. And this evening, I'm asking you to consider approval of this resolution authorizing us to extend this agreement so Greyhound can be back in our good graces of our lease with their finance department and our finance department, and we can continue on having them there for a couple more years before we renew the agreement. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, do we have any questions or comments of Director Rice? Seeing none, Mr. Milne.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve resolution number 4484, authorizing the city manager to execute a 5-year lease extension between Greyhound Lines Incorporated and the City of Pasco for space at the Pasco Intermodal Transportation Facility.
A motion?
Second.
And a second by Ms. Ross. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that passes unanimously.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you. With that, we'll move on to item C, which is resolution number 4485, the 2024-2025 City Council goals and approval of the city manager work plan. That's going to come from Mr. Lincoln.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The only thing that you should see as a change on there is maybe a couple dates that we'd actually gone by that were, the presentation tonight I think was scheduled for July 31st. There may be one other that was a June date, but other than that, the items that are on there should be consistent with the plan that's been before you in the past. And I'd just note that while it is August, a lot of the projects that are on there we've been making progress on them. So I don't want you to think that we're waiting to do something with these until council gives us the go ahead. There's been a lot of progress that's been made. Some of the things that we've been working on, the targeted urban area, behavioral health updates, water rights, public comment amendments, sit-lie ordinance, mobile vendors, Broadmoor, budget CIP, budget's getting scheduled for the end of the month to start those presentations. CIP's underway. HAPO Center, council rules, et cetera. So just wanted to make sure there wasn't a confusion that progress is being made on the items that staff are very aware that are your priorities. And with that, happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? Seeing none, Mr. Milne, we got two motions just to be open about that.
Okay, so the first one, I move to approve resolution number 4485, establishing primary goals for the ensuing calendar years of 2024 to 2025.
Second.
Got a motion by Mr. Milne and a second by Councilmember Graham. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that passes unanimously. Got a second motion.
I move to approve the 2024-2025 city manager work plan.
Second.
Got a motion by Mr. Milne and a second by Ms. Blaisdell. Any questions or comments from council? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That too passes unanimously. We'll move on to item D, resolution number 4486, amendment of sale of city property along Burden Boulevard, and that's going to come from Ms. Sigdell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Evening Council. This is an item that you have viewed before and approved for the city manager to act upon the purchase and sale agreement. We're coming to you with an edit to the purchase price of the property. We're requesting that we reduce that by $35,000. And the reason for that is during the prior process, both the buyer and us were under the impression of where a sewer stub was placed at. We found that it is on the opposite side of a very busy road and would cost a significant amount and a lot of problem for our commuters and our residents in that area. So the buyer is recommending that they bring a sewer line via a different avenue, which would help us not disrupt traffic in a very busy road, which would cost about $70,000. And they're proposing that we share in the cost. They will be pulling that utility into not just their current site, but also the pad site that is right next to us that is up for sale. So we will be increasing the price of that pad site for this utility, and the net impact, financial impact to the city should be zero. So at this time, you're looking at this agreement again with that reduced sale price.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments from council? I just got a quick one. In the event that the price escalates, like if it is more cost prohibitive, I was looking for a clause where it's addressed in the contract. I didn't see one. That's not to say that it's not there. Do we have some contingency in the event that that 70,000 doesn't get them there, and let's say it escalates to like 110?
At this
just
point,
on them.
yeah, at this point, we've agreed on that reduction of that specific amount of $35,000.
Okay. Sounds good. I just want to make sure that down the road, if something happens, we don't have them coming back asking for further reduction or some credit or something of that nature. I guess we'll deal with it then if that happens. Seeing no further questions or comments, Mr. Milne.
All right, Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 4486, approving the sale of certain city-owned real property located along Burden Boulevard, parcel number 117370017.
Second.
Got a motion by Mr. Milne, a second by Ms. Blaisdell. Any further comment? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, passes again unanimously. That moves us to item number 10, which is unfinished business. There is none. Item number 11, new business. There is none listed. Item number 12, miscellaneous discussion. I see head nod of in the negative from Mr. Lincoln, Mr. Perales.
I'll be quick. Just one thing. It's been well over 2 months since we talked about getting some type of information about perhaps an advisory for the Tri-State Animal Shelter, but that's adjacent to getting information from City Attorney Ferguson. So I was just kind of wanting to see what's going on with that. It's been over 2 months and haven't seen nothing come across our dais yet.
I'm sorry, I was talking city manager when you
I knew
saying-
you were.
Sorry
I
about
was
that.
saying it's been about over 2 months now. You were supposed to get something about the ACA board and all that stuff. So I just want to see where we're at on that, seeing if it's going to come back here.
Yeah, it's in the hopper. I think we'll look on the schedule, but I think it was scheduled for towards the end of this month. But then I'm out next week, so it'll probably be early September.
Oh, September? Perfect.
Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Webster.
I got 4 things, so I don't know if that'll be as quick as Mr. Perales. And looking for consensus on pretty much all these items. First one being having a few folks from the Water Follies Board come and give a presentation to council. They gave a presentation to Kennewick City Council a week or 2 ago, and just several things I'd like to hear from the economic impact to Pasco specifically that we're getting from Water Follies, their thoughts on the future, and there's a little concerning. It was kind of a good news, bad news where Water Follies event may not have happened this year had it not been for the family that owns Apollo jumping in and supporting it. The good news was that they did, so it was able to happen. But wondering, how long is that going to be a feasible option, and if it's going to be able to continue like that. And so additionally, want to get a report from them on that. So looking for consensus to do so.
You want to do that? You want to do that before you move on to your other issues? I mean, you're looking for consensus now.
Oh, yeah. Yep, that one, please.
My preference would be to have a written proposal and then determine whether or not we need them to speak at the podium, but Ms. Blaisdell?
I'm on the board, so, I'm open for them to come, but at the same time, I already know what they're gonna say, so. We can also have a conversation on the side if you want to, but I've served on the board for almost 3 years and helped volunteer for almost 10, so.
I guess where we are is anyone desirous of a presentation to council, if so please speak.
I would be in favor of it just to hear, and then also, this year with the water being low, I think we should be a partner with the Water Follies Board and figure out ways to increase that, whether it's talking with the Army Corps. So I'd be in favor of that, especially with the reconveyance issue that we've been talking about. I think that's part and parcel of that, so I'd be in favor of it.
Thanks, Mr. Grimm.
Thank you. Whether it be a letter or presentation or some sort, or even Miss Blaisdell just updating us, but yeah, it wouldn't hurt. I know even before Apollo, I remember seeing in the news a few years ago, I think unless Hapo stepped up, there was going to be a loss of it. So yeah, more information, the better.
Mr. Milne.
Yeah, I'm also for a presentation or a memo, whatever, but I'd like to hear what they have to say and go from there.
Ms. Barajas.
I would vote for something in writing, a report or some kind. If the majority wants a in-person presentation, I'm not opposed to it.
So I've got sounds like 2 hard in person and then several that are open to whatever. Is a memo going to scratch your itch, or do you need an actual presentation?
I'd prefer presentations. We have a back and forth, have it available for the public to hear, to see. But
Okay, so I'll flip that to
It's my
Mr. Grimm
preference.
and Mr. Milne. Again, I'll stay with my preferences.
That'd be fine. I'd be okay with that.
So you want an in-person meeting?
Whatever.
No.
Whatever everybody else wants.
Well, here's the problem. I don't think everybody else wants. So we're kind of at a
Let's do
open
it
3-3. Okay.
It's gonna be informational, so
That's-
it is important to have.
Yeah.
So,
No, I don't dispute the necessity of the information. So it sounds like city manager got 4 folks that desire an in-person presentation from the Water Follies. So let's get that scheduled up.
okay, next, Brian Vance is the manager, Office of River Protection and Richland Operations Office. In short, he's the top boss for the Hanford site. Same thing, he's been going around kind of giving a council tour
presentation, and I think it'd be beneficial to hear from him. I know Mr. Ripplepog, I think is how you say his last name. He'll be here next week to give an update on Hanford Communities. I serve on that board, but would like to hear from Mr. Vance as the top official out there, and especially given concerns raised in the Herald this weekend regarding a third tank now leaking radioactive waste into the ground. It's very concerning to me. I'm disappointed in the reports I've been getting from Mr. Vance. He makes no mention of anything negative going on at the site. And so, not that I want to, have him in front of a firing squad or anything, but I just have some concerns that I'd like addressed.
Okay, where do we sit on that as a body?
I would be in favor of that as well.
Here.
Okay, sounds like we've got 4. Mr. Lincoln?
School impact fees. Brought this up earlier this year at some time, and initially, when we had the discussion earlier this year, the thought was let's talk about that and all the other kind of development fees in one big conversation. I think that's scheduled to happen September, October, sometime in there. Because I think the school impact fee portion of the discussion is going to be a big item, my preference would be to have that be its own discussion and maybe bring that sooner if we kind of parcel that out of the entire discussion to address it separately instead of holistically with all the other fees. That one, there's a lot more that involves obviously other parties, the school district, and the agreement that we had with them from years ago that I think was clear they've not been fulfilling their end of. I don't know that we ever even heard back from staff of the school district on that. I think staff here possibly reached out and we didn't get a response. But again, looking for a consensus to go ahead and bring that as its own individual item to discuss separately from other development fees, because it's the development fees is a great overview of what's going on with that, but this whole item's kind of separate from that.
Where do we sit as a body?
Yes.
Quick question, I'm not opposed to it, but are we not scheduled to have Miss Rebecca Woods or someone, Whitney, do a presentation? Sorry, wrong name, Whitney.
So I had a conversation with the superintendent, Miss Whitney, to talk about coming and doing a presentation on the new trade high school. So that was what she intended to come and talk about. She's aware that council's interested in having the discussion as well. I think she was hoping to come sort of have a pre-discussion prior to jumping into that particular one, but I'm not sure what date we've had set aside for the other conversation. However, I think if council's desire is to separate them out, we can of course do that.
To that point, I would prefer, and I think council agreed, to not have both those discussions on the same night. I don't want to cloud the update on the high school.
I think that would be appreciated by Miss Whitney as well.
Okay. So we've got you, Mr. Grimm, and Mr. Milne. Yeah, I'd be interested. Go ahead, Blanche. Okay, so we have 4+. So let's have an impact fee discussion with the school board or their representative.
Okay, I got 4 more. I'm just kidding. This is the last one.
That's all right. You'll have to recuse yourself for the rest of them.
The Airbnbs. This has long been a discussion. Mentioned it tonight. Like, hey, let's discuss that. I think Director Gonzalez, you mentioned kind of bringing us some information on the history, and we just love it. It doesn't need to be long, but it could at least start the conversation on what we want to do with that. They're, I think, prohibited currently, but I can tell you get on Airbnb tonight, and there's plenty available in Pasco. And like Director Gonzalez stated, it's a good option for another source of housing, whatever that may look like. And so would like to at least have a discussion on what this council may be interested in doing with that.
I see Mr. Morales and Ms. Blaisdell.
Yes, I would definitely be in favor of that. I want to have these discussions. I don't think I've ever been guilty of ever holding my opinion back, but this is one of those things where, let's have the discussion, bring us the facts, let us make a decision, because what we always hear is, well, that's what council wanted to do 15 years ago, and well, this is a new council, and I think we want to be aggressive on some stuff and just let's have it out, and let's just discuss it. And so, Because honestly, at the end of the day, you give us the facts, we make a decision, we're on the hook. Not the staff, but we are on the hook. So, yeah, I'd be in favor of this presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Blaisdell.
I guess I have a mixed feeling about it. Running a hotel, I have my hotel specifically is long-term guests, so it kind of takes away from my business.
So you should probably recuse yourself.
But on the flip side of it,
Seriously.
I mean, we're just having a discussion. We're not voting anything. I'm giving my opinion, right?
Yeah.
On the flip side of it, there is value to it because I understand that some developers or construction workers come, they rent a house, they get a 5-6 bedroom house and they move all their workers into the house long term. They save money and they're building their projects. But again, it's taking away from my business. So I'm on the fence. So that's my 2 cents. But I don't have to recuse myself right now because I'm just giving my 2 cents.
I appreciate that, Ms. Blaisdell. Mr. Milne.
Yep, all for having a discussion. I can say that I use both hotels and Airbnb, and I would say that the last couple of years, a lot of the fees have gone up with Airbnb. So if you just stay there one night, actually the hotel is most of the time cheaper. It's only if you're talking long term. So, but yeah, let's have the discussion. All for it. Thank you.
Okay. With that, we've got a clear 3 yeses. I'd be interested in hearing or having some sort of conversation. So that'll be 4. So with that, Mr. Harpster, your light's on.
No, that was
you
it.
Promised
Thanks
4.
for the time.
Okay. Seeing no further light, that pushes us into item 13, which is executive session. It's listed for 30 minutes. Is that, inaccurate? Okay. Do we want to break real quick before half an hour exec session? Yeah, let's do 5 minutes. So we're going to have an executive session under 13A, which is discussion with legal counsel about current or potential litigation under Revised Code of Washington 42.30.110 subsection 1, Roman numeral 1. Given our 5-minute break, it'll be at 8:37, pushing us to 8:42. That'll push us to, we should return at 9:12. It is 9:11, almost 9:12. We're going to extend 5 minutes, so we'll return at 9:17. Thank you all for your patience. It is 9:17 and we've completed our executive session. With that, we are adjourned for the evening.